Newsmax and the political right in general are participating in cancel culture, like to a ridiculous degree. Now, some of it is ridiculous and funny, like this Target nutcracker thing going on, but some of it is not funny, like Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas, investigating a nonprofit organization that has been critical of him in the past. So I want to talk about cancel culture on the right.
Okay, so Target, which made headlines obviously for its Pride Month over the summer and LGBTQ merchandise, now has Christmas merchandise featuring an LGBTQ nutcracker as well as a Pride Santa.
This is a Newsmax reporter, quote unquote, not even a reporter, just a political commentator, I guess, trying to cancel Target. What happened to all this stuff about cancel culture? I thought these people freaked out about cancel culture 24/7. Where was all of that? I guess they're trying to cancel Target because they have a nutcracker with a pride flag. Is that even real? Does Target even sell that? I wouldn't put anything past the people on Newsmax, the good people of Newsmax. I wouldn't put any lie beyond them. Out of curiosity, now I'm really wondering, is this actually sold at Target? Okay, it's sold on Wayfair, sold on eBay, sold on Amazon, Poshmark, Temu. Target. No, I'm sorry. This Target link isn't even a nutcracker with a pride flag. Okay, let's just kind of scroll through Target's website. The nutcracker section. Yes, apparently they have a whole section for nutcrackers. It's pretty metal if I say so myself. And we'll see if they have a pride one. Okay, I'm only seeing one nutcracker at all. Then there isn't even a... It's not a Christmas one, it's a Thanksgiving one, apparently. I don't know what they're talking about. I'm not saying there isn't a gay Christmas nutcracker at Target. I'm just saying these people lie for a living. That's all. I'm not even convinced that this is real. Cookie Queen 425, re-Target. Most they've got is a witch and fully pink nutcracker. Why are they losing their shit over these? The Pride one isn't sold by Target. Because they're looking for a target. I mean, you know, no pun intended. They're looking for somebody to punch in the nose to direct the ire of their horde. They're looking for somebody to point at so that their group of extremists will go into a blood frenzy and go completely nuts over it. That's fascinating, though. Yeah, I guess Target doesn't sell these. Find out who does and attack them, right? Like, why are you even making fun of, or why are you even pointing out a company that doesn't do it? It's bizarre, man.
EJ, I believe you and we've talked about this before. Go woke, go broke. Target is...
Go woke, go broke is a cancel culture saying. I don't even have a problem with people boycotting things they don't like. That's your American right. But they're the people on this show that are screaming about cancel culture 24/7. What is go woke, go broke if not cancel culture? Quick interjection, this won't take long. I just want to say, if you want to support my channel, the best way you can do it is by watching this video to the end, or at least watching a little bit longer than you would have otherwise. YouTube's recommendation algorithm works off of watch time. You can also subscribe to the channel, like the video, and check out my Patreon. Link is in the description for that. All right, back to the video.
EJ, I believe you and we've talked about this before. Go woke, go broke. Target is really doubling down on all of this. I mean, how do you think consumers will react?
I don't think consumers really care. I think they're trying to create a bubble around this, if you will, to make people to whip people into a blood frenzy over this. Late November 2023, here's another example of Newsmax going completely off the rails into La La Land and complaining about something that isn't even a problem.
The annual parade will be an indoctrination, essentially exposing...
Talking about the annual Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York City. This happens every year. It's a gigantic parade. You can watch it on TV and everything else. I've actually been to it. Kind of sucks. You got to get there at like 5 in the morning, and you don't get to use the bathroom until you leave. So just think about what people have to do there. Anyway, just check this out.
The annual parade will be an indoctrination, essentially exposing tens of millions of viewers at home to the liberal LGBTQ agenda. Is what they're upset about the fact that there is a...
Wow. Exposing millions of viewers at home to the LGBT agenda. they must have had somebody in assless chaps and like leather gear and all this other stuff decked out, holding up pictures, like holding up explicit pictures, right? That must be what happened. I can't imagine any other scenario that would warrant this level of outrage. I mean, even that wouldn't. I mean, explicit pictures maybe because there are kids here, but just people standing around, certainly not, right? So what is this thing that happened that just outraged Newsmax to their absolute core?
What they're upset about, the fact that there is a non-binary identifying actor who is partaking in a song from the play Anne Juliet, I believe.
There's an LGBT person on one of the floats, I think, is what it is. An LGBT person in the parade. That's the outrage. Is this not cancel culture? What do you call this?
Is what they're upset about, the fact that there is a non-binary identifying actor who is partaking in a song from the play Anne Juliet, I believe.
Wait, it's an actor? It's not even a singer? So are they literally just standing around in this, like in this parade? Jesus, dude, these people are upset over absolutely nothing. Get help. Seriously. Like I said, I have no problem with people boycotting or protesting or whatever. That's your American right to do whatever you want. But it's crossing over from boycotting and protesting into something else. This is Ken Paxton on the right, talking to Charlie Kirk. If you don't know Ken Paxton, he is the Attorney General of Texas, which is basically, I believe he's the guy that like sues companies for fraud and destructive business practices or deceptive business practices on behalf of the people, basically. He sues companies as an actor of the state or whatever if they're doing something nefarious. So here are some things that attorneys general do. Issuing formal opinions to state agencies, acting as public advocates in areas such as child support enforcement, consumer protections, antitrust, and utility regulation. So forever ago, I lived in Huntington, West Virginia. There were two hospitals. There was St. Mary's Hospital, owned by the Catholic Church, and there was Cabell Huntington Hospital, and it was owned by somebody that wasn't the Catholic Church. Well, Cabell Huntington wanted to purchase St. Mary's Hospital, and those were the only two hospitals within like 150 miles or something. So it was going to create a conglomerate. You had no choice but to go to one of the hospitals owned by this same company, which means they can jack the prices up as high as they want. And there's nothing you can do. Eventually, the Attorney General of the state allowed the sale of St. Mary's Hospital to Cabell Huntington Hospital. This went through. That's just pure, unadulterated corruption, seems to me, but I digress. That's the kind of thing the Attorney General is supposed to do, is prevent things like that, antitrust violations and stuff. Representing the public's interests in charitable trust and solicitations, operating victim compensation programs, so on and so forth. They're supposed to be advocates for the people, basically, on behalf of the people as an arm of the state. So what has Ken Paxton done in his tenure as the Attorney General of Texas? Well, I can tell you this. He got impeached by a Republican legislature. Republicans impeached this guy. That's how bad he was. He came to the floor, came to work, basically. He was giving speeches and stuff. Drunk. He was drunk. He was slurring speech, stumbling around, didn't remember anything, what was going on around him or whatever. Came to give speeches at work, drunk, seriously. And then, of course, Donald Trump defended him, supported him. And the entire Trump wing, the far right wing of the Republican Party, defended him. And everybody just backed off suddenly, and he beat the impeachment. Check this out. This says, he received 16 articles of impeachment alleging corruption and bribery. So not only did he come to work drunk, but he was corrupt. He was engaging in bribery. His most artful escape in a career spent courting controversy and skirting consequences of scandal. This is the Texas Tribune. No article received more than 14 of the required 21 votes to convict. Only 2 of 19 Republican senators, Bob Nichols of Jacksonville and Kelly Hancock of North Richland Hills, voted in favor of convicting for any article. A stark contrast to the more than 70% of House Republicans who impeached the Attorney General in May. So 70% of the House voted to impeach this guy. 70%. You only need 66%, I think, to remove from office. 70% impeach him. And then it catches the attention of Donald Trump and their entire wing of the party. And suddenly, literally everybody backs off except 2 Republicans. Paxton, who attended just 2 days of the trial and was not present to witness his exoneration, was characteristically defiant. The sham impeachment, coordinated by the Biden administration with liberal House Speaker Dade Phelan, and his kangaroo court, has cost taxpayers millions of dollars, disrupted the work of the Office of Attorney General, and left a dark and permanent stain on the Texas House. Anyway, so he beat the charges. That's insane. Here's a rough description of what happened with bribery and everything if you're curious. The dramatic votes capped a 2-week trial where a parade of witnesses, including former senior officials under Paxton, testified that the Attorney General had repeatedly abused his office by helping his friend, struggling Austin real estate investor Nate Paul, investigate and harass his enemies, delay foreclosure sales of his properties, and obtain confidential records on the police investigating him. In return, House impeachment managers said Paul paid to renovate Paxton's Austin home and helped him carry out and cover up an extramarital affair with a former Senate aide. That's what the guy was impeached for. Oh, and he also came to work drunk. I can't let go of that. I'm sorry. He wasn't impeached for that, apparently, but that was one of the things that happened, like, near the end, right before the impeachment happened. So he beats the impeachment. Now, follow my train of logic here, okay? He beat the impeachment back in on September 16th, 2023, I think, is when the impeachment was officially ended. November 16th, 2023, Media Matters comes out with this article. As Musk endorses anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, X, previously known as Twitter, has been placing ads for Apple, Bravo, IBM, Oracle, and Xfinity next to pro-Nazi content. Media Matters is like a left-leaning nonprofit organization dedicated to exposing extremism, hypocrisy, anti-Semitism, that kind of thing. So they write this article. Apple and IBM and all of these companies pull out of advertising with Twitter. They stop advertising. What happens next? Elon Musk sues Media Matters to, for reputational loss or defamation or some other thing. I don't even know. And then Ken Paxton comes out and says this, late November 2023.
We were made aware recently of what's going on with Media Matters. As you probably know, a fairly liberal, pro-democratic organization, which is fine. But they are trying to manipulate, it looks like they're trying to manipulate the platform of X, formerly known as Twitter, to make it look like they're racist, and they tried to tie those racist ads that were created to some of the major advertisers on Twitter to hurt their business.
Look, they weren't trying to tie Twitter to racist content, saying that Twitter is racist or whatever. This is the article right here, and all it does is show examples of IBM and Apple and other ads like that sitting next to Nazi content. And it's not just a little bit of Nazi content, it's a lot of Nazi content. Here are just some examples. These are just like, I think 2 or 4 of them here. Let's see. What people think a spiritual awakening is like versus what it's actually like. And it's a woman sitting, yoga style meditating. What it's actually like, a spiritual awakening? Nazis. You see a picture of Hitler and Nazis there. And then an Apple ad directly below it. Let's do some more ignored facts about the Third Reich. After the Weimar Republic, or I guess it's Weimar, isn't it? After the Weimar Republic moved toward decriminalizing abortion, the Reich formally outlawed it in 1934 and increased the punishment in 1943. In 1934, the punishment for abortion was 5 years in prison. Mothers with 3 or more children were given honor cards, which allowed them to jump queues in shops and get rebates for rent and public utilities. Exercise and healthy eating was heavily promoted to all citizens, especially women. Women were actively removed from the labor pool and instead heavily encouraged to be mothers, right? So this is talking about how Nazi Germany was a good place and a good thing because it was anti-abortion. And, you know, you got Xfinity directly below it. So that's what, I mean, they showed like a number of examples. That's not the only one by any stretch of the imagination. There are a bunch here. But that's what the article did. It showed that these ads are being displayed next to Nazi content. And the point is, Twitter is full of Nazis. Like, it's insane at this point. I used to get 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 likes on some of my posts regularly, some of my tweets. Now I get 15 or 20 at most, sometimes only 5. And I get like entirely too many like far-right extremists commenting on stuff. I'm not even using Twitter anymore, but I tweet there very rarely, every now and then, just to see what happens. And it's almost exclusively like right-wing extremists. That's like all I see in comment sections and stuff. Anyway, the point was made by Media Matters, and Ken Paxton decides to claim that they're what's he even claiming about him? What deceptive practice warrants the Attorney General's attention? Or I'm sorry, the Attorneys General. Is it Attorneys General for the possessive form? I'm not sure. Anyway, listen to what he says here.
Some of the major advertisers on Twitter to hurt their business. Obviously, that affects consumers, and that's what we're looking into as a matter of law. Have they violated our fraud laws, and have they violated some laws as it relates?
Fraud laws. He's asking if a media organization, basically like a nonprofit government watchdog, reporting on right-wing extremism is violating fraud laws by pointing out right-wing extremism. What kind of backwards, bizarro land do we live in that we are here now, where this guy is calling for an investigation, a fraud investigation into a left-leaning organization simply for calling out extremism? I don't want to overplay this. I don't want to be like, you know, oh, this is Nazi Germany or whatever. I feel like it's kind of a slippery slope to go down, to start calling everybody Nazis. I don't believe that like everybody's Nazis or whatever. I don't. But when I see things like this, a far-right agent of the government trying to destroy his political enemies and using his office to do so, what else do you call this? Like, holy Christ on a cracker. This is insane. By the way, fraud, he said fraud, right? Fraud is both civil and criminal. He's responsible for the civil side. The police and the prosecutors are responsible for the criminal side. But as the Attorney General, he has the ability to recommend prosecution for fraud and stuff like that. Who's even being defrauded by a media organization reporting on right-wing extremism? This is like exactly what I do. I'm just sitting here talking about extremism. That's it. I could just as easily be like investigated for criminal activity for simply talking about Ken Paxton. This is insane. And now Charlie Kirk is going to get on here and talk about how right this guy is and how fantastic he is and everything. This is just scary stuff, man, for real.
So, you know, this is an important measure that you're taking here. So is it a civil investigation? Is it a criminal investigation? Is it the intent to sue? Walk us through some of the specifics.
So right now it's a civil investigation. I don't have the authority as Attorney General to do criminal investigations. That would be up to local district attorneys, which I wouldn't even believe that they would even start looking into this.
But he knows them and he can recommend this stuff. Just like Congress cannot technically charge somebody with a crime, but they can recommend to prosecutors and pass over evidence that they discover in an investigation for prosecution and stuff. So that's not out of the realm of possibility. If he's talking about fraud, that happens all the time. Attorneys general sue companies for this or that, and if there's actual criminal activity, they are charged with a crime also, the appropriate people, or they can be.
Hopefully some of them will, but we're looking at the civil side, and we have two angles. We have the nonprofit angle, because we're responsible as the Attorney General's office for overseeing charities, not necessarily helping them. We're supposed to make sure that they treat people the way they're supposed to treat them as charities. And second, we have the ability to look at corporations. If they commit fraud, it's one of the 4 things that I'm directed by the state constitution to make sure that corporations that commit fraud are held accountable. So right now, we're just at the very beginning stages of looking at both of those issues.
That's absolutely insane. Now, let me lay a few examples of fraud on you that this guy could be investigating. Right now, he's investigating a left-leaning organization for calling out right-wing extremism. Instead, now this stuff didn't happen in his state that I'm about to list. This may not even fall under the purview of the Attorney General. Certainly not the Texas Attorney General in all cases. But let me just lay out some examples of fraud cases that have happened recently where nothing's taking place, nothing's happening, nobody's doing anything about this stuff. The guy named John Rust, I think he's an Indiana Republican candidate for senator. He owns the second largest egg producing company in the United States. And I don't know if you guys remember this, not too long ago, there's like an egg shortage in the United States. You know why? Because of John Rust. He colluded with other egg producers, the other ones in the industry, the number 1 largest, and then the next 3 under him, I think, something like that. They all worked together to slaughter their hens earlier than usual, to ship their eggs internationally, and to otherwise limit the egg industry, the market, to drive up egg prices, create a bubble, and make massive amounts of money off of it when the supply returns, trying to drive those prices up and hoping that they don't drop afterward. That's John Rust, Republican candidate for senator in Indiana. Who's looking into that? I think somebody is actually looking into that at this moment because that just came out not too long ago. Here's another one. Heritage Auction House. It's an auction house. It's existed since the 1970s, right? It participates in auctioning off old coins, comic books, retro games, things like that. Just vintage things, right? There's a guy affiliated with it. I think he may be the co-founder or the CEO or something. Guy's name is Jim Halperin. I want to be careful what I say because I don't have firsthand knowledge about any of this stuff. So I'm just going to kind of say things vaguely to the best of my knowledge and say, I'm pretty sure that this is the case, but you should be looking this up yourself. Don't take my word for this, okay? From my understanding, back in the 1980s, there was a vintage coin bubble that existed. You know, vintage coin prices shot through the roof, and nobody really understood why. Well, as it turns out, to the best of my knowledge, there was a speculative bubble being created as a result of collusion between an auction house and a grading company, right? So a grading company drives these prices up by saying, wow, this coin is worth a lot of money and it's super rare and it's graded, 9.8, 9.9 or whatever. And then the auction house puts a price tag on it and estimates that it's worth this much, and it garners interest and articles start being written about it, and people are talking, hey, you may have these old coins in your house you didn't even know. And before you know it, some of these coins are selling for like thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, and they're not worth it at all. It's a speculative bubble where people are coming in to purchase these things. By the way, I'm describing what's happening to the retro game market right now, or what happened to it very recently over the past couple of years. And it happened to the coin market. Both the coin market and the retro game market created a speculative bubble as the result of actions taken on the part of Heritage Auction House, owned or co-founded by Jim Halperin. That's interesting, right? Same guy involved in both bubbles, both speculative bubbles. That's super strange, super coincidental. And Jim Halperin was fined $1.2 million for doing what he did in the 1980s with coins, to my knowledge. And here we are, 40 years later, we have the retro game market forming out a bubble, and we have Heritage Auction House partnering with a brand new grading company that didn't exist before. Now they're grading these games, Wata Grading Company, I think it's called, or something to that effect. They're grading these games, sending them on to Heritage Auction House, and selling them for like millions of dollars. That's an example of fraud that is actually being, they're being sued right now for their, I think Watts is being sued. I think Heritage Auction House is being sued for that fraud. But fraud, as I said before, has two parts to it, criminal and civil. They're facing justice civilly. Where's the criminal action? Where's the criminal component to this? The egg companies with John Rust, they're being sued by Kellogg and a variety of different breakfast manufacturers or cereal makers and, you know, Jimmy Dean, the company that owns Jimmy Dean and things like that. They're being sued by them right now. So they're probably going to face civil liability, but no one's going to pay the price for this. No one is going to sit in jail because of what they did. Drove up prices for people. People literally went hungry because of what the egg farm did. They literally could not buy eggs because they're too expensive. People literally lost millions of dollars off of the speculative bubble that existed in the coin market in the 80s and the retro game market in the early 2020s. Sam Bankman-Fried did the same thing with FTX or something similar. He claimed that the crypto money over here was not being used for speculative trading over here. He wasn't going to use investors' money to gamble. And guess what? He did. He used the money to gamble, and that crypto bubble popped, and he lost everything, including everyone else's money. Who's investigating this stuff? I think Sam Bankman-Fried might be in jail now, but is he really the only guy? Is it just one guy? Is FTX still up and running? And if so, why? What do we do about somebody who, hypothetically, for example, creates a speculative bubble in a coin market in the 1980s, drives up interest, and makes everybody think, oh, this is a big thing, we got to buy into it? So a whole bunch of people who aren't even interested in coins or retro games or whatever start buying this stuff up so that they can sell it for higher later. And as you start to see prices rise for this stuff, the consumers that are actually interested in retro games or in coins aren't buying it for these prices because it's not worth these prices. The only people that are buying these things for these prices are people trying to make $1 off of it. So this bubble forms and blows up and finally, eventually pops when everybody realizes these games aren't worth it. What do you do with somebody who forms out a bubble like that? Can you really ban somebody from, like, being a retro game collector? Can you ban somebody from being a coin collector? It's complicated. Somebody suggested, I think Drake Eldritch suggested to me earlier, maybe we put people who do this in a conservatorship, a financial conservatorship, where all of their financial transactions are monitored closely. Like Britney Spears level, close. They're not allowed to own any businesses, and they're not allowed to hype things up the way that they used to before, because they've proven twice now that they're willing to destroy people's lives to make $1. There's fraud all over the place. Why did Ken Paxton pick Media Matters to pay attention to? They're not committing fraud. They're reporting on extremism, like me. Why did he pick them? Why isn't he paying any attention to any of the other stuff I mentioned? Even if it doesn't fall into his jurisdiction. There is a ton of stuff this guy could be working on right now. Instead, he's focusing on the political enemies of his political allies and himself. This is just, does it get more depraved and corrupt than this? I guess walking into your job drunk off your is pretty bad. So, I mean, that one takes the cake, I think. Is going to work drunk worse than what he's doing here? You be the judge. Tell me what you think in the comments. This is Jim Baker. I mean, Jim Baker is famously, he was charged with a bunch of fraudulent behavior. I forget what, it was wire fraud, I think, where he told his listeners, I want to take donations for this charity. I don't even remember what it was now. And he took up donations, tons and tons and tons of, like millions, I think, in donations. And instead of spending it on this charitable act, he spent it on himself. He just, used it as a slush fund. He bought a car, bought a house, bought whatever he wanted, never actually donated. I mean, that's fraudulent action. Why isn't Ken Paxton investigating things like that? You know what else Jim Baker did? He got somebody on his show not even that long ago. During COVID, when COVID started, 2020, everybody was freaking out. No one knew what was going on or what to do or how to get healthy or whatever. Jim Baker gets somebody on who is selling colloidal silver. Colloidal silver, by the way, doesn't have any health benefits at all. In fact, if you take it for long enough, it will literally turn your skin blue. You will be blue. Don't do it. I mean this level blue, okay? This is blue. There's a colloidal silver guy, famously. Yeah, this is the guy right here, if you're curious. He literally blue. Interestingly enough, the origins of Tylenol also did this to your skin. It turned it blue before we got our modern-day Tylenol. That's another story for another day. Point is, don't take colloidal silver. Jim Baker got people on who were outright claiming directly colloidal silver will cure you of coronavirus, and it will protect you from being infected. If you drink our colloidal silver solution, you will be safe from coronavirus. That's what he said. Oh boy, did he get in a lot of trouble for that. That's the kind of thing that an attorney general should be doing, watching out for that type of deal happening. And what is Ken Paxton doing? Suing Media Matters for fraud. Suing a nonprofit organization dedicated to exposing right-wing extremism, suing them for fraud. Who did they even defraud? Anyway, just insane, man. Ken Paxton has been indicted for securities fraud. Was he really? Trial set for April 2024. No way. Was he? I didn't realize that. Oh my God. Sure enough, the Texas Tribune. Thank you so much for that information, Buds. Appreciate it. Attorney General Ken Paxton securities fraud trial set for April 15th, 2024. Wow. The charges stem from accusations that in 2011, Paxton tried to solicit investors in a McKinney technology company without disclosing that it was paying him to promote its stock. The Attorney General has pleaded not guilty. This is literally the exact thing the Attorney General is supposed to stop. What he is doing. It's like he got elected into this position and looked at the job description and said, yeah, I'll try all of that. That sounds good. I'm in charge now, and I'm the one that would be investigating this, so I'm just going to do it all. Does it get more corrupt? You don't find people this corrupt on the left, like in the Democratic Party, not this bad. I mean, I guess Menendez was pretty bad. He was overtly taking money from Egypt and like gold bars and stuff. So I guess you do find him, but I feel like there are way more on the right. Maybe that's just my bias. I don't know. Tell me what you think. There was a Democratic senator, I think, named Menendez, senator of Virginia, maybe? And he was straight up taking bribes from Egypt to, like, assist their government and give them favorable recommendations and votes and aid and stuff like that. It was just bad, dude. So, you know what? They're everywhere. Corrupt people are everywhere. Power attracts corruption. I don't even think power corrupts. It just brings in people that are predisposed to it. But I will be if I don't see this like entirely too often on the far right. Menendez is New Jersey. Okay, thank you for the correction on that, Mark Von Wisco. Insane, man. Absolutely insane.